This is a huge step up for Sean O'Malley. Sean O'Malley vs Petr Yan was recently announced in an absolutely stacked UFC 280 card. And this matchup is definitely going to be a very interesting one to say the least. But quickly, before we get the video started, for those of you who may not know, I'm Juicy MMA, I make opinionative MMA content, and if you guys enjoy videos similar to this, hit that subscribe button, that like button, and that post notification bell. But anyways, let's get into it. Sean O'Malley is one of the bigger stars in the UFC. The fact that he was unranked for so long, and even at this point only being the number 13 ranked bantamweight, the fact that he's able to pull such great pay-per-view numbers is pretty incredible, and really just tells you how much of an entertaining fighter and entertaining person he really is. After most of his opponents were unranked guys, Sean was then gonna go up against the biggest test of his career in Pedro Munoz. And although a lot of people, including myself, expected Sean to win this fight, this would definitely be the biggest test of his career. And in my personal opinion, I thought Sean did win the first round, although the judges did see it differently. But of course, that matchup ended in probably the worst way it could have, in a no contest due to an eye poke. But no matter who you thought won that first round, either Sean or Pedro, one thing that was pretty clear was both of these guys were very, very close in talent level. And you could definitely make the argument that Sean maybe was starting slow due to the fact that this was his biggest test of his career, but once he got more comfortable, he would start to pick it up. Or you can also make the argument that maybe Pedro would have picked it up as the rounds didn't go on. But this was definitely a very close fight no matter how you slice it. So the fact that Sean is taking a fight against Petr Yan, who's currently the #1 ranked bantamweight, and in a lot of people's opinions, the best bantamweight in the division, this is such a crazy jump for Sean, and I definitely give him a ton of respect at the very least for taking this. But now let's break down Sean O'Malley's game to really see why so many are a fan of him. So it's no secret that Sean's main ability is his stand-up ability, and he certainly has a ton of ability. He has a nice jab, he has a nice uppercut, a hook, cross, he has the ability to switch stances whenever he wants, he has an ability to throw kicks either to the legs, to the body, even to the head. I would also say he manages distance relatively well, although we haven't necessarily seen him need to utilize that all that much. In terms of his power, I would say he has relatively good power, although in my opinion he's more so of a volume guy. Now he of course has an ability to throw elbows and knees in close, although we haven't necessarily seen it. In terms of his chin, I would say he has a relatively good chin, although once again, we haven't really seen it get tested all that much. The only time that he's technically been TKO'd was against Chito Vera, where it wasn't really because he got knocked out, it was more so due to the fact that his leg was compromised. Now in terms of his takedown defense, once again, we haven't really seen it utilized all that much, and I would probably say it's okay at best. But once the fight does get taken to the ground, Sean of course isn't necessarily all that good there, although I know he has decent jiu-jitsu, but once again, we haven't really seen it tested all that much. And by the way, I don't want this video to sound like I don't think Sean O'Malley's all that good, because I definitely think he's a very, very good stand-up fighter, but it's just when you're moving up in competition to the extent that Sean is, the number 13th ranked bantamweight, fighting the #1 ranked bantamweight, now you're talking about another level of fighter, and at the very least, it's going to be very interesting to see how Sean fares. But now let's move on to Petr Yan. So it's no secret, similar to Sean O'Malley, that Petr Yan's main ability is his stand-up. And in my personal opinion, I think he's the best boxer in the UFC. But Petr does a really nice job at staying extremely technical with throwing whatever shot he wants. He has a nice jab, a nice uppercut, a hook, cross, he can switch stances whenever he wants. He throws elbows in close, he throws leg kicks, body kicks, head kicks, spinning head kicks. He has a good amount of power. He also has phenomenal cardio, and he can throw that power for 5 rounds. Overall, in terms of his stand-up abilities, Petr is one of the best in the UFC, and there's certainly an argument to be made that he's the best. In terms of Petr's chin, he definitely has a very, very good chin. He has really good takedown defense, although it's not really going to come into play in this matchup against Sean. But as I mentioned before, Petr definitely has pretty good, as he certainly has the ability to shoot on a guy like Sean O'Malley and take him him down at will. Once on the ground, Petr has the ability to throw ground and pound shots and potentially end it, or at the very least win that specific round. And overall, Petr Yan is just a very well balanced fighter. But now let's get into my prediction for this matchup. Now I think the game plan for Sean O'Malley is probably going to be fight behind that jab and just keep a distance from Petr. And the reason why he would want to keep a distance is for two different reasons. The first and most obvious is Sean obviously has the reach advantage, so he would want to be at a range where he could punch Petr, but he can't get punched himself. But another potential reason for why he would want to keep a distance is the farther that you are from your opponent, the more time you would have to see a shot coming, and the more time you would have to stop a takedown. And as I mentioned before, Petr actually has really good wrestling, so he would certainly have the ability to take a guy like Sean O'Malley down relatively easily. Now of course we'll see what happens when the fight does come around, but based upon what we've seen so far from both of these guys, that's just kind of the feeling I get from it. But if Sean O'Malley's able to fight behind that jab and keep his distance and have a relatively good start early, there is a chance that Sean could win this matchup by decision. I don't really see him knocking out Petr Yan, although it is possible. I just think Petr has too good of a chin and has too good of a feel for fights and would just see a lot of these shots coming, at least in my opinion. But I think Petr's game plan is probably going to be look for wrestling at times, don't necessarily force it, but certainly look for it if there's opportunities. But on the feet, his game plan is certainly going to be getting close, back Sean O'Malley up, and just get him uncomfortable out there on his back foot, where Petr is then going to be able to throw his power shots. He's also probably going to look to incorporate a bunch of leg kicks, which is something that has been a weakness for Sean in the past. Although one thing that I will say to give Sean some credit is in that matchup against Pedro Munoz, he was able to check a lot of those leg kicks and he seemed relatively unfazed from all those leg kicks that Pedro did throw at him. And Pedro is definitely known as one of the better leg kickers in the UFC. But if I had to give my official prediction for this matchup, I would probably say that Petr Yan would win this fight by a third round KO. I think Yan would probably start off relatively slow in the first round like he typically does, but in the second and third round, I think he'll start to pick it up and weaponize that pace, and eventually in the third round, he'll probably be a little too much for Sean O'Malley, at least in my opinion. But of course, as I mentioned before, I don't necessarily think this is an unwinnable fight for Sean, although it's obviously a huge step up. But I guess we'll see what happens once the fight comes around. But anyways, let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you think Sean O'Malley has a chance to win this matchup against Petr, or do you think Petr is going to win? But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did enjoy it, check one of these two videos popping up now, and until the next time, peace out guys.